Welcome back to Youthology on AUK Radio, brought to you by Attentive Social Enterprise every other Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Manur.
Manvi.
And today we have three very special guests. We have Nash, Lisa, and Claire. So would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Thank you. My name is Nash Hussain. I'm a Detective Inspector with Bedfordshire Police. And I am the Victim Tactical Lead for the force, so looking after everything victim.
I'm Lisa Harris. I'm a Victim Engagement Officer that works within our Emerald team, which is our domestic abuse unit. I'm not a police officer. I'm a safeguarding member of staff within the police that supports victims of domestic abuse.
I'm Claire Knight. I'm a newbie to police, really. So it's a new pilot project of partnership between Bedfordshire Police and Early Childhood Partnership, which is the charity I work for. And it's a new pilot that's being kind of run at the moment. So we're 6 months in. So I'm an independent domestic violence advisor, so a domestic abuse specialist based in Force Control Room.
Thank you for joining us.
That is a wide variety of roles, but it's definitely brilliant to see the work that you do, and that's what we will be talking about throughout the show. So firstly, we're going to be focusing a little bit on policing. I know, Nash, that's your main role and what you work within. So throughout the other parts of the show, we'll be talking more about the work you do in domestic violence and handling those cases as well. So my first question is, policing has different divisions and specialist units. Can you tell us about the different roles within policing?
So if I go on, so my role is more strategic based. So I'm the Force Victim Tactical Lead. So I work under a Detective Superintendent, Dave Scarrett, who's the Deputy Strategic Lead. And then we work under Detective Chief Super Zara Brown, who is the overall strategic lead. So my role is to make sure that the force are complying with the victim's code, the 12 rights, making sure that the victim's journey is as smooth as possible, making sure we're keeping victims up to date, complying with the code of victim's code, the 12 rights, and making sure our performance is a high level as well, because even the PCC's mission is to keep victims at the heart of the criminal justice system, and that's what I do. That's my predominant role. My second part of that role is listening to survivor stories as well. So I go to listening circles. We're doing those with 9 Red. We do survivor's voice with victim support and stuff. So we get survivors to come in and talk to the police about their interactions and engagement with the police. And we try and learn from those experiences and trying to improve and better ourselves where we need to. I also do a number of other things, including community engagement. I launch projects within the force as well, but I'm overall responsible for victims. I am an operational officer, so I am a detective inspector, so I'm still an investigator at heart, so I still do operational activities such as being on call and stuff, so going out to serious crime investigation stuff and covering where I need to.
That is a lot of things, and one thing that I really liked was putting victims at the heart of the process. Because I know one thing, when you're working within service-oriented roles, the most important thing is to prioritize the safety of human life and the safety of victims as well. So my next question is, because you have this many roles, what are some of the challenges, and this will be for the three of you, what are some of the challenges you each regularly face within your roles, and how do you work to overcome them?
I think for me the most important thing is I'm the middleman, if you want to call it that, so I'm that link between the force and the community, but the force and the force as well. So I've got to make sure that whatever we do, I know we're under budget constraints, I know we're under resource constraints and things like that, so we've just got to be realistic about how we can manage expectations of victims. But equally, I work and serve my community, and it's the whole of Bedfordshire. So it's not just Luton, it's not just Central, it's the whole of Bedfordshire. So I need to understand what the needs of the community are, what the experiences, interactions are. And if we need to improve that, we need to improve that. And sometimes that's a hard story to sell. And that's the difficult part, learning from your mistakes or learning when something hasn't gone quite right. How do you rectify that? How do you improve that? And then going back and saying, well, we are improving it. I know sometimes people don't feel that we are, but there'll be a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes that people won't see. They won't recognise it. I mean, you see all the front-facing cops in uniform going out in cars and arresting people and so on. But there is a lot of stuff that happens behind the scene, including me, that are working continuously to try and improve policing. And that's the hard part. It's just trying to ask the community to give us some time to continually improve. We are good at some things, but we can be better. But also asking the force, look, this is a culture. We might need to shift something. We might need to change some things. So it's just getting people to agree to do different things. But I love my job and I wouldn't be anywhere else. And I'm still an investigator at heart. And then mixing that in with my operational role, because I still want to be a detective. I still want to go out to those serious investigations. I still want to do that crime stuff as well. So it's about juggling everything.
It's very challenging, but at the same time, I also like the aspect of it being like bringing everyone together.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you have a role such as being a part of the police or trying to work up to be a good detective, there's that pride of almost wanting to seem that you're doing a very good job. You must be appreciated for what you're doing. But at the same time, the challenge behind that might be is about like you still have to show up, make sure everyone has problems, cater towards them and everything else. And that's the most important thing about the role. It's about making sure that you put your head down and you do things, and you do it in a way where it serves the community, even though sometimes it's not mentioned.
Yeah. And sometimes you've got like that personal aspect as well. So you've got to put your personal to one side and be professional at all times, because that is we've got to be that face, isn't it? But we do have that with human side as well. And sometimes it does affect us, but just people don't see it or don't recognise it. But we try and put that professional side always to the forefront.
And I think probably because we all do different roles, we all have our own challenges. So from my point of view, I think one of my challenges is trying to get victims to maybe continue to support police investigations, and understanding the difference, I think, with the police investigations and then the court system, and understanding that actually they are, although they work together, they are two different entities. And it's understanding that sometimes we do our best, but then other areas is not so good, and it's trying to balance that out and getting victims to understand and I think educate them on it, and trying to get them to stay in the investigation.
Do you find that victims are sometimes hesitant to get involved with the police, and is that something that you're trying to manage and work on?
Yeah, I think when you're looking, because we are here about domestic abuse, I think it's not like other crimes where if you're talking about a theft, somebody wants somebody to get into trouble, arrested and charged for an offence. These are matters of the heart. They're usually people that somebody loves. And when they call the police, it's at that point where they are so fearful or just want it to stop. Sometimes the police turning up stops the incident, and then they're like, but I don't want them to get into trouble. I don't want them to go to prison. I just wanted it to stop. So then they'll say, I'm not supporting police. And it's trying to, I think, educate what domestic abuse is and understanding what that is, and working with that, I think, is the difficulty that we have, or certainly that I have.
But sometimes it's that trauma aspect as well, isn't it? Because we know there'll be a number of abuse cases or incidents that happen before anybody even reports to the police. I don't want to quote stats or figures in case I get them wrong, but you don't report on the first incident. People take some time to report.
I think they say...
is that 2 years?
Well, they say on average, I think it was 34 times that abuse will happen before it's reported to police. So if 34 is the average, how many times are some people... If some people are reporting it in the first 3 or 4, 5 times... Some people aren't reporting it for maybe over 100 times to get that average down to 34.
And sometimes people are so controlled by that abuse, and it's ingrained into them, or the police can't help you, or the police are going to take your children away. We don't have that ability to take... I mean, we have a power PPO, but that is not relevant to domestic abuse. That's where a child is at risk of significant harm, and we feel that they need to be taken out of that situation. However, if people, sometimes that is used as a weapon as well. There's a lot of weaponisation, and then there's the fear, or people are so, through coercive control, the esteem is knocked so badly because of the abuse that they just don't feel anybody can help them, that they're in this situation, all becomes normal, doesn't it?
Yeah, and most victims will have been told that no one will ever believe them. Yeah. So that is always at the bottom of their mind, at the back of their mind. So when they do approach. I'm from charity background, so I used to be a domestic violence advisor and a sexual violence advisor. It's hard for someone. They sometimes don't even know that they're experiencing domestic abuse, and so a lot of that role was explaining kind of, what is domestic abuse, what you've been experiencing. They've been threatened to say your children will be taken away from you, or they're not going to believe you, the police, they're not going to believe you. And that's what people believe because they're good at mind games, and perpetrators and suspects are good at that.
And I think it's drip fed to them, isn't it, over many, many years, because you don't just jump into an abusive relationship. You meet, you have that honeymoon period and it's all lovely, and then slowly it starts to come and you're in it before you actually realise what's actually happening.
Yeah, because with domestic abuse there's so many complexities to it. Oftentimes you hear people say, oh, well, if they're the victim, why don't they report it? But there are so many intricacies that can come with that, such as being controlled. And another thing I want to kind of ask is, because oftentimes from a public point of view, domestic abuse is just seen as, it's the physical elements, not the psychological elements. So how important is it to understand that it's not just about, we see domestic abuse as someone being mistreated, even though physical abuse in itself is a very bad thing as well, but understanding the psychology behind it as well.
Sorry, I was just going to say, can I go on that one? Just based on what clients have told me in the past, people who experience physical violence generally get a break from that. And if you think about controlling and coercive behaviour, it's as soon as you wake up in the morning, you've generally done something wrong, and then it's 24 hours a day, and it's constant, and it's everything about your character, your personality, which is where your self-defense, self-esteem disappears, self-confidence disappears, because you're just worn away by it, because it is all the time. And a lot of people who experience domestic abuse used to say, I wish it was the other, because I would have a break. And that's really sad, isn't it? It's just that there's that comparison from victims themselves.
But there's also that cultural aspect, because honour-based abuse is part of domestic abuse and it's not talked about as much. Honour-based abuse happens in cultures where communities and families put pressure on the victim, use that psychological nature of the abuse to coerce them into forcing into a marriage, having an abortion, or, doing things that they wouldn't then normally do. But because of the pressure of the family, because of the respect aspect element and stuff of it, victims are fearful to speak out, because if they speak out, the worry is they'll lose their whole family over it. So there's that aspect as well. So they don't want to lose, like you said, it's a love thing. They don't want to lose their loved ones, because they're groomed, isn't it? They're groomed, they're ingrained, and that's all they know.
And I think in some cultures as well, there's a monetary exchange for marriage. So if that marriage then fails, someone's got to then potentially pay that debt back. And it might not be a debt that a family can afford to pay back. So there's a lot of ties that come with it. So that's also something that needs to be sort of taken into account. That
comment of, why don't someone just leave? For people who work in it, it enrages us, because it's like, it's not easy.
No, it's not.
I've had people who have been from a very well-off background, their children go to private school, and it's really difficult. They're not going to be able to continue that if they leave, if they go to a refuge, if they try and leave. So it can be a whole heap of things.
Well, it's the financial element, isn't it? By leaving, if your joint bank account, your joint finances, everything like that, it all changes. So sometimes your debt increases, the finance isn't there, you've got work, you've got your children, you've got your house, you've got a mortgage. You've got to think about all of those things on top of your mental well-being and your physical well-being. So it's not as simple as, well, why don't you just leave? Because it's not very easy to put that foot out the door.
I think with young people as well, things that might come quite naturally to some young people, like taking nudes or filming themselves in sexual activity and stuff like that, which is all part of their what they would think is their healthy relationship. All of a sudden, when the relationship starts to break down, is if you leave me, I'm going to post them all over social media. I'm going to share them with your family. And all of a sudden, so you might not have the financial dependency, you might not have the children, but all of a sudden they've got this hold over you because they've got some very, very personal data on you that they're prepared to share with the world. So you're stuck. What do you do?
Yeah, that's why it was. I wanted to ask that question, because oftentimes in the public point of view, oh well, you've been through that. Why didn't you talk about it? And it's a very apathetic way of thinking. You've got to be empathetic to be like, okay, there might be a reason why this person maybe does not want to openly talk about it, and like all of the reasons you mentioned about around culture, around the psychology, around how the perpetrator will control the victim. And obviously the monetary aspects, the reputational aspects, it's so very important to mention, because if within most parts of life we only see the outside of what someone is doing. Oh, that person, they've got this job, that person, they're doing this, that person, they're doing that. But we don't ever get to see kind of like, okay, what's going on within their mind, because that's that invisible battlefield that we never get to see. And it's very important as to why we kind of have this conversation around that, okay, the mentality of the victim, what are some of the things they go through. And another part that I wanted to kind of talk about is, how does domestic abuse kind of affect young people, and what are some of the things that happen with young people, and how do they deal with it?
It just, from my point of view, social media is a great thing, but it can also be an awful thing. So we have people like Andrew Tate and all of that stuff, telling young men how to treat young women. And young people, it could be their first relationship, and they don't know that it's not like that for everyone else. And so it could then inform their future decisions as well. So, oh, that's acceptable in a relationship, like the nudes and that kind of thing. And it just is so important, but no one talks about it. It's all just kind of hidden away. So it's really great that you're doing this, and that to let people know that there is support for you out there.
And I think sometimes young people see domestic abuse as something that happens in older relationships. And I think for young people, it's more about saying what's a healthy relationship and what's an unhealthy relationship. And it's things like monitoring where you're going, you know, who you're going out with, who are you seeing. I don't like you seeing that person, but the way it's done psychologically is, that person doesn't really like you, they're using you, I don't think they're a very good friend, I don't think you should see them anymore. Then the victim starts to withdraw, but it was her choice. It wasn't forbidden. They weren't, it wasn't forbidden. Yeah. And I think the other thing that I would say to young people to be mindful of is tracking. Snap maps, sharing locations, because it's used to keep an eye on you. What were you doing there? How come you were at so-and-so's house, or things like that? And then if you're being asked those questions and you're feeling awkward about it, that's when the relationship's starting to become unhealthy. And I think the other big thing that people don't realise is keeping an eye on them, on young people, is video calling. Instead of texting or phoning, they video call each other, and that's to check you are where you said you were.
The background.
Yeah.
Now
they think it's just because you want to see your beautiful face, you know, missing you babe type of thing, but it's not. It's to sort of go, well, where are you? You said you were going to whatever, you know, and then all of a sudden you're justifying yourself, and then next time you go out you think, well, I mustn't go anywhere else, because if I do I might get a call. Then if I don't answer it, and then I get questions on why I didn't answer it, and if you're starting to feel that fear, that's when it starts becoming an unhealthy relationship. So I want to say to young people, stop video calling each other when you're out. I want to say, stop having the whole world seeing where you are on Snap Maps and things like that, because it's used to stalk people.
And on nudes, just don't. They're just too dangerous.
Or if you're going to, just don't put your face in them, because you can say it was anyone's body. But yeah.
And that's where isolation comes in as well. So a perpetrator will try and isolate that person. So they'll say, your best mate came on to me and I don't trust her. And then so that person then makes that decision to go, okay, I'll back away. And then what often happens if they're going out with friends, texts we're nice texts to begin with, or messages, and then it's like, where are you? I'm coming to get you. Or they're tracking and they turn up at the bar, and then someone changes their behaviour. When someone changes their behaviour to keep the other person happy, they're the red flags, you know.
Yep.
It's
And that's
kind of,
when it's unhealthy.
you stay in
Definitely.
because it's much better than having to explain everything, or much better than you saying you're going out with your best mate that he's already or she's already said they don't like, you know. And it's just not easy, you know, when someone does say that, why don't they just leave and get out of it? It just is so...
With the news aspect, sometimes people don't even know that the nudes have been taken, or they've been in a compromising
Been filmed.
situation, or in a sexually explicit situation, and that photograph's been taken, and people don't understand the law properly. So even if you threaten to send it, you know, to humiliate that person or embarrass them or distress them, then that's still an offence and a criminal offence. But it's humiliation that's used, and it's generally with the news, it's humiliation because suddenly they're snapped to half the group. Suddenly half a school has these images of this person doing a sexual act or in a sexual manner, or they posted on. We've had jobs where they've been posted onto like porn sites and things like that, and that's another way of humiliating that person because that person didn't conform to what they did, or they stick them on Facebook, or they'll send them through letters into the family addresses to say this is what your child's been up to and things like that. So it's about dominance, isn't it? It's about dominance, control, and humiliation. And I think for us the key point here is control. Is there any aspects of that relationship are suddenly becoming a little bit controlling, like the video chats, like the constant tracking, like the taking of the images without consent and things like that? What is it that's keeping them or forcing them? And they say gut feeling is the first thing. If your gut feeling is saying,
trust your gut.
shut your
And actually, those nice things. You know, we've all had. Have you heard love bombing? You know, that honeymoon period. It's all amazing. It's all amazing. During that period, you might be given gifts of clothing. Oh, that's, you know, and then it suddenly switches to, well, you're not going to wear that out, are you? Or, oh, that looks horrible on you. And so it just is so gradual. Yeah,
or they suddenly become, oh, I bought you a phone, you owe me, therefore you've got to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
and suddenly it is transactional, because I think that's how sometimes with the young men that they end up, you know, being forced into doing drug dealing and things like that. That sometimes happens, isn't it? You get nice gifts and things like that, and suddenly you owe a debt, so you've got to pay off this debt, and suddenly they're forced into doing something that they don't want to do. And in relationships, something similar can happen. So if you look at it in the same way, it's the same grooming thing, isn't it? So you get given something, and it's happening in the grooming gangs up in Rochdale and Rotherham and so on and things like that. So you get given something but suddenly you owe, and you've got to pay off that debt, and that's why you have to remain in that relationship.
In terms of control and grooming, I feel like social media often shows red flags as something that's healthy in a relationship. Like, for example, tracking. It's kind of celebrated online. So what do you think we can do as a community to combat that and show young people that that might not be the case?
I would say it's about what control have you got over that tracking, because who is tracking you for what reason? So you've got the Hollyguard app that allows you to share your location when you want to share it. It's not somebody having access to your location 24/7. And I think it's about having that control when you want it on and when you don't want it on, and for what reasons. And I just think it should be banned.
You've got to remember stalking, isn't it? That's the primary way a stalker will monitor their victim, is tracking. And sometimes that tracker is quite open, like iPhones, they have that tracker on them. Find My iPhone, your Samsung, Google. If you check your phones, Google is watching you the whole time until you switch it off. So you need to check your location settings and stuff like that. So when we put someone in a hotel, for example, we insist they put their location settings off. Sometimes if you've got a joint Uber account, people can track you through the Uber account. If you've suddenly ordered food, we put someone in a hotel and their family find out where they were because they used their Uber account. It was a joint account and they found them. So we had to go in and then move them into somewhere else, and they weren't in that safe environment anymore. So you've got to remember stalking. You know,
technology is a huge area that I don't think people realise. You just set things up all the time, don't you? Oh, I'll just log on to that, or I'll get that app.
But we don't want to scaremonger either, because sometimes people track for like the children and things like that, coming home from school and that kind of stuff. That is healthy. What isn't healthy is when you install a tracker on someone's phone, or it's an adult being monitored and tracked, I'd say. If someone started tracking me, I'd be a little bit
asking you where you are and why you're there.
Exactly.
I think it's about setting rules around it. I think when you enter that, when you enter that relationship and you're asking, can you share your location? Why do you want my location? Because is there a trust issue here? And actually, if there's a trust issue, we need to be working on that, not about where am I located. Maybe I'll share it with you because I'm going out for the night and you want to know when I get home, that's fine, but it'll be going off in the morning. So it's about setting those boundaries and those rules in that relationship as when it can go on and when it can't go on. But to know whether I've got to work and whether I've gone to the shopping centre I said I was going to go to and when I've got home from Tesco's, I think we should be learning to take control of when we can say no and that be respected.
And that's where social media plays such a big part in that, is about accountability. Unfortunately, there isn't any, and showing what is a healthy and an unhealthy relationship. And sometimes the unhealthy relationship, like Andrew Tate, misogyny and stuff like that, is glorified. And people think that's normal when it clearly isn't.
In terms of what a healthy and unhealthy relationship is, I feel like sometimes victims of abuse might not come forward because they believe that this is what a healthy relationship looks like. So what advice would you give to someone who's struggling with knowing what a healthy versus unhealthy relationship looks like?
Like we said, try and trust your gut because it's there for a reason and it does alert you to a danger. And also, it's hard, but speak to someone. There's Bedfordshire's really well represented with charities, agencies and professionals that can just go through things with you. If you've got that question, like I think I might be experiencing something doesn't feel right, it's a good trust the gut. But it's hard to, because you kind of go, am I overreacting? Maybe I did do something wrong and maybe I did upset them. And that's kind of constant for a domestic abuse victim. It's that maybe I did do that wrong, maybe I did do this wrong, and generally they haven't done anything wrong, and it's about having someone you can kind of talk to about that and bounce that. Try a friend or family, and then there's certain advice that we would give is just kind of, if someone wants to tell you, be there to listen and don't judge. It's hard for families though, I think, but.
And I would say it's about fear as well. If you feel frightened of the repercussion of whatever it is that you've done and you're feeling like you've got to make an excuse or a justification, that's when I would say it starts to get unhealthy, because you shouldn't have to be making those justifications. And if you know that you could upset your partner and you're doing things to not try to upset them, that isn't what a healthy relationship is. It's sort of like that treading on eggshells. That shouldn't happen. But I think if you've got that fear and you start to panic, what can I say? What can I do to get myself out of this? That is absolutely when it is unhealthy.
And also, you have to tell them exactly where you are, who you're with, what you're doing, even if it's just as innocent as going to cinema or going to get some food somewhere with your friends. And you stay out longer than you need to. I mean, that's quite healthy, isn't it? Joint decision making is quite healthy. The fact that you don't have to be answerable for everything. You don't have to be constantly messaging each other.
Not
I know people do that. Yeah,
anything. You don't have to justify. Like, I'm 5 minutes late.
No.
I've had clients before where they've had to give receipts in. If they go out anywhere,
bus tickets.
They felt the bonnet of the car to make sure it wasn't warm. They had to put they did the mileometer.
Yeah.
So that stuff is unusual, but by the time they start those things, you're through the love bombing stage and you're kind of in there, and it's really hard because they don't come at you with all of that behaviour. It's bit by bit by bit by bit by bit, and you wouldn't be able to.
A frog slowly burning in the pan. It's like you don't understand it if it's at a temperature where it's like, if it's very hot, then the person will immediately jump out of it. If it's like slowly, by the time the person's too comfortable inside, they feel trapped.
Yeah, and what do you do then? And by that point, sometimes they would never trust their gut instinct because, they're not themselves really. They've lost themselves within that relationship.
Signs of an unhealthy relationship is you have to justify everything, where you are, who you're with, what you're doing. If you're a little bit late, why are you late? Even if you're spending time with your family, especially as a young person, you know, you're going out to weddings, parties and stuff like that, you're doing family things. Asking if your family members are next to you and then suddenly judging and doubting your family members and trying to isolate you from your family, that's a sign of an unhealthy relationship. Like I said, young people spend a lot of time on their phones. It's like constantly glued to their hands. We're not saying that's unhealthy, but when you're constantly telling someone, where are you, every 5 minutes, or someone's tracking and monitoring who you're with all the time, or even if you've gone to college or school and they're waiting outside literally every single day unannounced, and they insist on walking you home just to make sure that you do get home. There was a really good TV show on recently, you know, it's just completely escaped my mind, and that's what it showed, where the young female, you know, she'd stand outside and suddenly the boyfriend would suddenly turn up, and then...
But I think that's when your friends think they're amazing.
Yeah.
You know, oh, he's so lovely, he's come to meet you, isn't he great?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, where you might start feeling a bit smothered by that, you're thinking, oh, okay, I'm really lucky to have him like that. Or it's like if you go out to the pub and they say, I tell you what, I'll come and pick you up at 10:30. Well, they shouldn't be putting the time on it. It should be, you know, if you're done by 10:30, I'll pick you up. If not, here's some money for a taxi type of thing. It should be a bit more relaxed. But if your boyfriend turned up at a pub, sat with your mates, had a drink and took you home, your mates are going to go, oh, isn't he lovely? My fella wouldn't come out with my girlfriends and do something like that. And then it makes you think that that's healthy, but it's not, because it's not giving you space. It's keeping an eye on you. Are you where you said you were? Are you out with the people you said you were? Were you talking to any other men? That's all about being able to control and keep an eye on what you're doing.
And then when you don't reply and you're silent, then sometimes there's manipulation tactics used. People are often accused of cheating. You're cheating on me, you're with another guy, you're another girl, you're lying, you're this, that and the other. Somebody saw you, somebody didn't see you. And you find yourself, you're justifying where you were, who you were with. Or mental health issues quite a bit. We've seen jobs, not so much young people, but probably our older adults, where suicide has been used as a threat. I will kill myself unless you get back with me. I will kill myself unless you come and see me.
I can't live without you.
I can't live without
dead.
you. Yeah. So that mental manipulation, then suddenly somebody feels responsible, and even if they go and do some minor harm, or you know, like they hurt themselves in some way, then the victim feels like they are suddenly responsible for that person's life, and they cannot then do anything that will then cause harm to that person because they believe they would be responsible. If I hadn't done this, if I had just gone back with them, they wouldn't have harmed themselves, they wouldn't have ended up in hospital. And often the perpetrator would use that, they use that manipulation tactic to say, you made me go crazy, you made me have mental health issues, you made me cut myself, you made me try to kill myself and things like that. And the burden is placed back on the victim. And then sometimes people justify that behaviour, sometimes families, oh, why don't you just get back with them, none of this would have happened. Or friends would say, oh, he was really lovely, you know, you'll make, it's about that being believed thing, isn't it? It's about you're not being believed, and suddenly everybody else is justifying the perpetrator's behaviour without realising it. Sometimes people do it deliberately, but a lot of the times I'd say they don't do it deliberately, and it's almost confirming that's okay and what you're doing is not okay.
Another thing I've heard, I might be right or wrong about this, is that, let's say, for example, a victim has broken up with a narcissistic person, and one thing that tends to happen is that because they've put so much energy into making sure that they have to maintain this relationship, like it's a broken bridge, like they're the ones building it, and then the narcissist is trying to just keep on stopping everything over it. They drive them away from their friends. When they get back to their friends, something I've heard is that sometimes those friends will be in I told you so mode. Yeah. So I told you shouldn't have been with that person. I told you shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that. Rather than being like, okay, you know what? They're back. They've made this brave decision. And I think even after that, the victim might feel isolated as well, which is something uncomfortable to hear, but it happens. And that's just because, you know, if you leave a group of friends unaccounted without saying anything, then it's like, oh, well, this person's left us. I don't know this person anymore. When you come back, you're like, oh, now you come back, rather than just hearing them out. It's unfortunate.
Family are like that as well. Maybe they've tried to help them leave the relationship previously, or they've tried to help, but, you know, and sometimes that's why a victim will stay, because their friends have kind of gone, I've had enough, and family have. So they think, I'm not going to have any support at all if I do it. And separation is a really risky time for victims and survivors. And so back to the comment you said earlier, why don't they just leave?
Yep.
Because they've been threatened that they'll be killed if they leave them, and also they haven't got that support network necessarily around them.
Yeah, and they've invested so much energy in that they feel like, after that, even though it's such a terrible relationship to be in, we can't question the fact that they're also attached to that, and that's something that they've had to put an effort on, because all of their emotional investment has been trying to make sure that nothing breaks, the eggshells don't break. Yeah. And that's another thing to also account for.
Sometimes they're exhausted, aren't they?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to say there is a flip side to what you said about isolation, because we can have control in friendships, but what you can do is you can have the perpetrator groom your friends and family that they are the most amazing man, soft, I'm going to use the man, male, female, that they are amazing, soft, gentle, wouldn't hurt a fly, will do anything for anyone. So when you're being abused at home, how on earth can you tell your families and friends that this wonderful man is actually hurting you psychologically or physically or sexually behind closed doors? They're not going to believe it, because they've done such a good job in grooming your friends and family. And then they even go on to potentially we've seen it in interview where they try and charm a police officer, and we see it with children's services when children are involved, and then they start to say that the mother's unstable and that there's mental health, and and you don't know what it's like living with her, and all of a sudden the victim or the survivor is feeling like she's got no support at all because he's managed to groom everybody around him and they're completely on their own, which isolates them.
And again, it's that shame and dishonour thing in certain families and certain cultures. It's like you can die, but you're not leaving the house, and your body's going to
talk to the police.
Exactly, your body's going to leave the house, but you have to stay in this seriously suffering abusive relationship, because otherwise, if you leave, it will bring shame and dishonour. Will be shame of the community. What will the community say? What will the family say? Especially if it's a interfamilial marriage and stuff like that, or there's land or money and stuff like that involved. So the victim feels that they can't leave because they'll shame and they'll get disowned by their family. That's the biggest thing as well. Or they'll bring shame on their family. So again, it's not just the perpetrator controlling; it's other people then come in and become that controlling factor as well. So you suddenly getting sometimes intentional, but sometimes unintentional abuse from everywhere. And you're so tired fighting it, so by the time you actually eventually do leave and try and start a life of your own, it's not that easy. It's you've got to rebuild yourself first, you've got to rebuild your esteem, you've got to rebuild and sort your life out, become trusting again, because that trust element suddenly goes, isn't it? But sometimes you're so vulnerable that you end up, somebody else comes along and says, do you know what, I'm so much better than that person, I won't do that to you, I will care for you. And then you start all you want is a bit of love and attention, just like a child, and then suddenly you're being abused again because that person suddenly then becomes the abuser.
We do this little topic in training, don't we? And I think it impacts everybody every time we deliver it, and it's about what has somebody got to gain to leave a relationship. And we talk about they gain their freedom, their independence, they've got so much to gain, they can get their self-esteem back, and then we talk about what have they got to lose. And I think the biggest impact is their losses are immediate. So they lose their house, they lose their belongings, they lose their job, they could lose everything, and it happens just like that overnight, whereas all your gains can take months and months and months to rebuild. And some women do that, start to rebuild it, and it's too hard and they go back.
But it's authority people as well, isn't it? So colleges, for example, sometimes your perpetrator will make mates with your security guard and then get access into the college and do what they want. And then the victim's thinking, well, he's just got access into the college, he can do what he wants. If he's doing that to security guard, what's he going to do to the police?
It's definitely heartbreaking when victims get blamed for being just involved in a terrible situation like that. So in terms of that, why is it important for professionals from different areas and backgrounds in policing be involved in cases of domestic abuse?
I think the pilot scheme. That's why I've arrived at police headquarters. I think I've got a different view of domestic abuse than, because the police, it's got to be very law based, because that's the criminal side of it, whereas I've come from the other side. So the hope is with this pilot that I can bring my knowledge and expertise, which isn't police based at all, although I've worked with police very closely, with victim engagement officers in my roles, but it is about, I have a different view of high risk sometimes than the officer or the staff member that's kind of dealing with that, and that's what I'm there for. Sadly, the Raneem's law, she was killed by her husband, and her mum was also killed, and her sister witnessed it. But she had been phoning the police, not Bedfordshire Police. She had been phoning the police, and they just weren't healing. So that comment earlier, like, why didn't they tell anyone? Sometimes people try to tell, but they don't know what to say. So hopefully my expertise in working and speaking with victims and survivors can help in a very kind of structured, what law's been broken. Because that's one of the first things I noticed was, what crime has been committed? And I thought, I don't think many victims would actually have a response to that, because sometimes they just like, I'm ringing the police, I don't know why. And that's for us then to kind of work out what's happened and see any crimes have been committed. But I think as a first question, I don't think many victims would be able to.
Especially for the policing side, it's for us to, you work closely with your partners, because then you can provide the holistic support. So everybody comes and works together to support that victim in their journey and make it less impactful as it is. Sometimes it is quite horrendous, because I know the criminal justice system can be quite difficult to navigate, but we try and make it as easy as possible. By engaging with each other, we then find out who are the most risky people in society and how we need to protect them. We can look at intervention measures, prevention measures, work closely together and learn from each other as well. So we have a victim partnership board that we have once every quarter, and that we bring all our partners together, both statutory and charity as well, and we work together to make that journey easier. We look at the code, how we can comply with the code, and if there's any training available that everyone's doing, or if there's a new project starting, things like that, then we tap into each other. But with that, we're not going to work in isolation. The police can't work in isolation. They need their partners to stand beside them to feed that information in, so then we can do our bit, but equally our partners can do their bit as well. So we provide that overall holistic support. Where that journey is difficult enough, we then can, I'm not saying it's going to suddenly be smooth, there might still be some bumps in the road, but we can make it as comfortable as possible.
That's where your role comes in.
I was going to say,
You are the bridge.
I think we're all specialists in domestic abuse outside of policing that have been brought in to support victims. But I think when you look at domestic abuse, there are lots and lots of factors that play a role in it, and that could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it can be mental health. So actually, and you've got the physical health side of it, but we need to work with our partners to unpick what that involvement is and how we can make that better. And so it might be, whereas my role's immediate, like if there was an incident last night, I might be contacting that victim today, but doesn't necessarily mean I'll be supporting that victim next week, and that's where I need a partner agency to take over from that. And then there might be some mid-term support, and then they might decide that that victim needs some long-term support. So it's working with all the professionals out there that can best support. It might be that counselling is needed, it might be that there is some mental health support, or it might be that there are addictions within it, because our abusers can cause us to have addictions as well, because they make us think we're crazy and we need
escapism.
And escapism. Yeah.
It's definitely important that when you have everyone working together, then you can, one, identify the problem, and two, see where you need to take it. Okay, the police need to play a role in doing that. Other organisations need to play in supporting the victim. Other people within the community can help out in just being moral support, helping them this and that and so on. And it's important to have this holistic approach. And my next question is there something you wish the public better understood about domestic abuse?
I'm going to say about conviction rates, and I think it is so hard sometimes to get a conviction with domestic abuse, because sometimes it's just one person's word against another. And I don't want victims to feel that they're not believed, because I believe every victim that I come across, but does not necessarily mean just because there's that belief, there's the evidence to get it to court and get a conviction.
That is very, I guess, it's very interesting, because we tend to think, oh, well, there's a lot of domestic abuse going on. But then alongside that, there's also this hidden iceberg of how do we get evidence? How can we prove that? And also victims that do not report. And that is another situation as well. And I guess it would be a case of trying to make sure, okay, we've understood these problems, but these are not problems that are like, oh yeah, we just see what the problem is, we fix it. It's about preventing it from happening. So that's the important thing around that.
And that's where the partnership working, to your earlier question, comes into place. So if the police know that their role is over, we can't support up to a point, but we know engagement with partners will probably help that prevention intervention work, that's where we'd ask a partner to then step in and take that role over from us, because we can't do everything. And I think that's what you need to understand, is that we are evidence gatherers. We don't make the decisions in any investigation, to be honest. That's down to, yes, we can make decisions in certain investigations, but ultimately with domestic abuse, the decision is made by the Crown Prosecution Service, not by the police, and that is statute. That is something that happens. All domestic abuse investigations have to be referred to the Crown Prosecution Service, and they make a decision on them. And if they decide not to proceed, you can challenge the decision, but ultimately if they think it's not going to get a conviction, of course it's not going to progress, unfortunately. So not, like you said, not every investigation will end up in a conviction. But it's also understanding that not every victim wants to go through the criminal justice system either.
No.
Sometimes they just want to reach out and get their voice heard and say, help me, and that's the start of their journey. And it's a big step for a victim to say, help me, I need help, I recognise I'm a victim of abuse. And that's where that holistic, that wraparound care stuff comes in. Just because it's this criminal justice system isn't kicking in doesn't mean that that victim can't get support anywhere else.
So finally, to close off the show, do you have any words of advice to someone that might be experiencing abuse but is maybe afraid to speak up and seek help?
Yeah. If it's to a young person, there is support out there for you. It's hard, but you know, you can see from the three of us, we are here, we believe what, you know, we're never going to question anything and we wouldn't judge anyone. If it's a professional that might be watching, if someone wants to disclose to you, make sure you give them that time and you believe them. Because sometimes people think professionals are too busy, they're, you know, they don't want to bother them, but actually everyone's had the training, so everyone knows what they need to do.
And we do have Clare's Law, which you don't have to be in an abusive relationship to use that. Clare's Law is a law that enables you to do a check on any potential partner. So if you're considering getting in a relationship with somebody and you just want to make sure that they haven't got any kind of abusive past, you can submit a Clare's Law application. And if we have a disclosure to give, the police will contact you and invite you into the police station and give you that disclosure, but then some safeguarding around that. You can do that if you're talking to somebody or whether you're in a relationship and married to them, and that can be applied via our website. And I would encourage anybody, you know, if you've got, you can do it even if you don't have a niggle about it, but if you do, or your friends say that person is trouble, then just pop a Clare's Law in. That person will never ever know that you've done that Clare's Law, and you are protected from that. And you can also put it in for your friend. So if you think your friend is at risk from somebody, you can put it in and they would never know it's come from your friend. So it's very, very, very confidential. And I would just encourage anybody entering a relationship to pop a Clare's Law application in and see what comes of it.
I mean, my final thought is call us. Ultimately, if we don't know about something, then we can't help, or we can't ask partners to help. So it's about taking that first step and being brave and just calling us. Even if you don't want to do anything about it, you just want to talk to someone, get some advice, then call the police. Get yourself known. So we know what your situation is. Like I said, if we don't know, then we can't help. And what we don't want is for someone to be so scared of calling us or thinking that we're not going to do anything, because I know sometimes there's a negativity portrayed around us. Please don't do anything. There's this, that, and the other. We try our best. Sometimes we don't get it right, and it's out there. I'm not going to sit here and try and shy away from that. Sometimes we don't, but we generally try our best within the resource and demand we do have. But call us, and we will help where we can. And if we can't help, then we'll refer you to someone that we can. We've got in-house support service, BVCS, Bedfordshire Victim Care Services. We've got statutory partners, ECP, Synergy, and all the other victim support. There's so many people that we work with. So if we can't help, we can refer you out to someone that can.
Definitely.
But it's about taking that first step and then letting us know about it and then letting us help you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now
Thank
we'll
you for
go
having
on
us.
a quick break. Welcome back. We are now joined by Aurora. So would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
So yeah, I'm Aurora and I'm owner of Limerence, and essentially what we do is we upscale clothing brands.
Aurora, you mentioned that you are the owner of Limerence. So what inspired you to start your own clothing brand? And what inspired you with the name Limerence?
Okay, so that's a really good question actually. So me personally, I've always loved fashion. I'd say me personally in my journey of fashion, it's been quite interesting. My friends will tell you, I didn't really always have it, but it's something we had to work on and develop. Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things about fashion is it's a form of expression. So as you grow, your wardrobe will grow, it will change, that sort of thing, which is something that inspired me making Limerence, because I know so many people who have their own clothing brands, and these are talented individuals, but their business, their brand might not get to where they want it to purely because of exposure, because they don't know how to market what they're doing, or they haven't been exposed to the right people, the right videographers, etc. So that's definitely something that we provide. We've got a growing network of videographers, models, manufacturers, essentially everything these clothing brands would need in order to get to that next stage, along with our expertise, digital marketing advice. Yeah, that is definitely what we provide and focus on at Limerence. Now, as for the name, Limerence, the word, obviously, it's got connotations of infatuation and obsession. It's typically used towards an individual, like a crush, if you will. But here at Limerence, we invest in passion. We invest in people's passion and people's dreams. And we want people who are obsessed with what they're doing. So that's where the name came from.
Wow. So could you tell us more about your journey? How did fashion become your passion, and how did you get to the point where you are today?
Okay, well, so now I have to be humble, isn't it? Like, I wouldn't say that I'm the most fashionable person on earth. It's just an interest of mine. I love going shopping. I love looking at what's new, all that kind of stuff. But in terms of passion, like I said, I am a strong advocate for the idea of clothing being a form of expression, and I'm someone who likes to express myself. So yeah, that's definitely where that passion came from. Just the versatility of clothes, how one person could be wearing one outfit another day, and they're giving off a complete different vibe to what they give off the next day, that sort of thing.
It seems like that might have been your inspiration, the fact that clothing in itself, no matter what type of clothing it is, speaks to you about something. It's a form of expression, and it's a way sometimes you can connect with people, you understand the psychology of people, and it's that infatuation with the, I guess the mysteriousness behind it as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when a lot of people think of clothes or talk about clothes, and they are intrinsically materialistic things, objects, but you gotta remember, it's people wearing the clothes, people choosing what to wear based on how they're feeling, and clothing is art. So it's definitely something that I've admired, and I look to try and promote in what I do. And again, it doesn't, what the work we do at Limerence, it doesn't really even feel like work because it's just so enjoyable. And then again, the human aspect of being able to bring someone's vision to life is definitely fulfilling and rewarding in and of itself.
So would you say that there's anyone that's inspired you in your creative journey? Like, it doesn't have to be a specific person. It could just be like, this idea has inspired you, or this situation has inspired you.
Okay. So, like I said, I know a couple people who've got their own clothing brands. And what inspired me is the confidence you actually need to, first of all, design. And no one talks about the amount of work it takes to put in to a clothing brand, to have your vision, to design, to promote it, especially if you're working by yourself. So I know a couple people in this situation, and that's just looking at them has definitely inspired me. Like, hold on, like, this doesn't have to be that difficult, you know? So yeah, the one thing about Limerence is we're trying to build a community, you know, a community of creatives where we can all benefit from one another. So
Another inspiration is being a young entrepreneur, and that sometimes has its challenges, sometimes has its rewards as well.
definitely.
So could you tell me some of the biggest challenges you have faced as a young entrepreneur and how you have worked to overcome them?
Okay, well, first of all, we're working in a game of experience, and obviously, being young, you might not have that experience to start with. But on the other hand, the time to start is now if you're young. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's definitely been a pro and a con. People definitely look at you. Some people look at you and think, oh, you're young, what do you have to offer? Another person sees the passion and the drive and the potential that you have, and they'll be willing to hear you out. So it's definitely, being young is definitely the biggest pro and the biggest con.
And do you work alone, or do you have a team behind you?
I actually work alone. However, as I said, we're a network. So we have a team of videographers, a team of we've got a team of videographers, we've got a creative board of directors, you know. So but in terms of running Limerence, yeah, I'm the only one. Yeah, this is very much my brainchild.
And is that something that's quite challenging, working by yourself?
Yeah, definitely. But like I said, you just got to look at the bigger picture, isn't it? This is something I actually want to do. So
You probably like the aspect of when you're by yourself, you're doing things your way as well, isn't it?
yeah. That's one thing as well. Like, it is my way or the highway, because it's just me, isn't it? Yeah.
I definitely kind of liked your point where you're like, it's the biggest pro and it's the biggest con. Could you expand a bit on that? And from my point of view, I kind of see it as you either I see it as a big benefit because you're now going on this journey where you will see all the ebbs and the flows that come in, and then that will become your experience. But do expand on the biggest pros and biggest cons, because I like that explanation.
Yeah, so like I said, in an experience based game, the game is experience. The people with the experience get the clients. They know, and they just know what to do. Like, experience is invaluable in and of itself. However, the time to gain experience is if you're young. So when I'm the age of my competitors, I'll hopefully be far ahead of where they are at that point. And there is, I do believe there is an aspect of youth that is invaluable in itself. I feel like the youth, we view the world differently. We are definitely in a creative generation. We understand the ins and outs, especially of social media, growing up with it. So these are all aspects of being young that you can definitely use to your advantage as a young entrepreneur, especially in this field.
So would you say being young helps you connect with your audience?
Most definitely. Being young, because a lot of the people online or buying some of these clothing brands or some of these clothes from these brands, I mean, are young people, and if they can see someone that they relate to, as opposed to a 4-year-old man, do you know what I mean? Like, it becomes much more of a personal transaction.
Definitely.
So what does success look like to you in terms of awards, collaboration, global reach, and what you feel like success means to you personally within this business?
Okay, so in the next 5 years, we are going to have a very large following on our socials medias, so Instagram and on TikTok, and we're going to be able to promote people. So on our stories, on our posts, we're going to have a blog where creators will send me an article about their brand. We'll post that on the brand, get them the publicity that they need, and just hopefully just grow as a business, expand our network of videographers, models, manufacturers, events as well. We'll definitely be hosting some events where like-minded individuals can meet and benefit from each other. So yeah, that's definitely the direction that we're pushing this in.
So it's definitely good that you've got an objective sealed in your mind that this is where we're going, because oftentimes if you don't have an objective, even if it's a very ambitious objective, it's something you can grow towards as well. So that's a very important thing to have. So what advice would you give to another young person with a big creative idea but have no idea where to start?
Okay. Definitely, and it sounds cliche, but you just need to start somewhere. And not knowing where to start, okay, I'd say research first, and then whatever idea you have, think over it, and then just start. Because starting is definitely the hardest part. You might have doubts, insecurities of like, oh, what will people think, this, that, and the other. But those same people that will have bad things to say about you, you have to ask, what are they doing? Like, what are they trying to build, you know? So you just got to focus on yourself and push it. And once you start, one thing will lead to another, and your journey, you'll just move on that momentum, isn't it? Momentum is so key in this space. Once you start moving, just don't stop.
That is a very good note to end the segment on. You also mentioned that you're a youth ambassador at Attentive. Can you tell us where you first heard of us and what motivated you to take on this role?
So I actually heard about Attentive through a family member, and what motivated me to take this role is how Attentive has changed her life in terms of the kind of person she's become. You know, before she joined, she was quite timid, you know, struggled in social spaces, that sort of thing. But now she's really confident, and just out of the situations that Attentive puts you in, might put you in situations outside of your comfort zone, but in the best way possible, because every opportunity at Attentive is a potential learning curve. You just have to be willing to grasp it with both hands.
So what skills would you say you've learnt whilst being at Attentive, and how could that help you both professionally and personally?
So funny enough, one of the things you learn is photography. So especially in what I'm doing, that's like super helpful. So photography, public speaking as well, article writing. There is actually so much that we do in Attentive. There's a different training session going on every week, if not every other day. So there is actually so much going on, and it's great. It really is great.
Yeah, there's this consistency thing going on, and I feel like with some of the skills they interlink with each other, like public speaking and article writing. With article writing, obviously, Mino, you've done a lot of article writing. Would you say it interlinks with public speaking and some of the other skills that?
Yeah, definitely, because with article writing you do need those communication skills, and that goes into public speaking, because oftentimes with public speaking someone might be scared to do that because they don't know what to say, and with article writing you kind of develop your thought process into words. So
So, reflecting on your journey so far, how has being a part of Attentive changed you?
Okay, well, it's definitely added some responsibility to my life at the moment. In a sense of there are meetings, and you have to attend these meetings. It's very important. You
There's
attend
a
these meetings.
consistent routine that you have to follow.
Yeah, literally structure, maybe to your week. And then obviously the things. So for example, I'm part of the marketing team. So there are tasks that might be delegated with deadlines, and these are all things that are transferable in any workspace. So it's great to be able to practice these skills whilst also doing something impactful and positive in your community at the same time.
So what advice would you give to someone who is maybe thinking about joining Attentive but is a bit unsure?
Okay. So as in they're just a bit unsure about joining? Okay. Well, I will say that there is so much to gain from joining Attentive, and what do you really have to lose? Because it's not even lost time, because what you're spending time on will benefit you. So there's not a lot to lose, but there is a lot to gain. And even the people you'll meet, the people you'll be able to network with. Funny enough, Montel's actually had a meeting with Montel the other day, and he was telling me how he actually did something within marketing similar, akin to what I'm doing now. So it's just being open-minded to where this journey will take you. It will take you somewhere, and you will meet and gain some valuable skills and meet some interesting and important people.
And finally, to close the show, if a young person is thinking about joining Attentive, where can they find out, and how can they contact us?
They can find out on our website, attentive.com, and there will be contact information on the website.
That's ATT10TIVE, Attentive.
Anyways, thank you very much, Ivaro.
Thank you so much.
This has been Youthology Radio here on AUK Radio every 2 weeks from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. brought to you by Attentive Social Enterprise. We have been your hosts, Manve
and Manur.
And our guest for this half,
Aurora. And if you want to check out our page on Instagram, it's at limerence.icons. You'll find us.
Thank you very much, and see you later.